probability he could quite possibly become Prime Minister in about 6 weeks. He's never held elected office of any form. He doesn't sit in Parliament. And he could be making Canada's policy at a time of national crisis. And yet, a week after launching his campaign, and longer than that after going on American TV to soft launch his campaign, we have heard absolutely nothing, zero, crickets from this man about what he would do as Prime Minister. Now, I think this is especially curious because this is a man who has not shied away from the cameras in the past. He loves to be photographed at royal dinners and the Wimbledon box. He has spoken on every panel known to mankind, but he has not made any time for you guys. I don't think he's taken any questions with the Parliamentary Press Gallery, and he's certainly not taken any questions with Canadians. I think it is very curious, putting it mildly, that an unelected man who thinks that he can waltz into the Prime Minister's office without answering any questions about policy during a time of national crisis can get away with that. Where is he? I have heard, as I'm sure you have heard, that he's somewhere in the area, that Carbon Tax Carney is having a carbon tax cocktail hours, a Canapé Carbon Tax Carney cocktail hour, if you will, instead of answering questions. Now, he's not in the Liberal caucus retreat because he's not a member of Parliament. You know, there are many questions that he should be answering. For example, he had the Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, somebody who has said that he would resign if the carbon tax wasn't repealed. He had him go out on national media yesterday after he endorsed him and say the carbon tax wasn't dead. Yet his campaign team said that he was considering killing it. So is Carbon Tax Carney, who has been an active proponent of the carbon tax for decades, is he going to repeal the tax or what? At the same time, today in the national media, there are many instances of violent crime. What is he going to do about the opioid crisis, about gang violence? Is he going to continue the Liberals' catch and release bail policies? What about housing? There were many reports over the last week since he's announced his campaign about chronic homelessness, particularly here in the province of Ontario, of as many as 300,000 people being chronically homeless in the next very short period of time due to inflation and other crises. And then, of course, in the national media today, we have the persistent issue, tariffs. Does he support retaliatory tariffs? And I'm going to say this, as much as he has not been available to you, there is nobody in his camp, there's nobody in the Liberal caucus who's saying whether or not he would recall Parliament in order to pass the border security measures that the Americans have said are necessary in order to avoid tariffs. He was made the chair of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Where's that report? Did he write the fall economic statement that saw Canada's deficit balloon beyond its fiscal guardrail by 50%? Where is his report? What about all of his personal questions around his compensation due to his numerous senior board positions? These are all questions that you should be asking him, that he should be answering the Canadian public if he wants to be Prime Minister in 6 weeks, particularly as an unelected man. Yet here we are, trying to find him, like, where's Waldo? Where's Waldo? Where is Carbon Tax Cocktail Canapé Carney in Ottawa? I honestly cannot believe that this is where we're at in a time of national crisis, and it's deeply frustrating. So again, my question is, where is Mark Carney and why is he hiding? Thank you.
What is it about Mark Carney that seems to have Conservatives so concerned?
It should have every Canadian concerned. This is an unelected man who has been the architect of some of the most disastrous economic policies in Canadian history. He's been the Liberals' senior economic advisor behind things like the carbon tax, the deficit, and now he wants to be Prime Minister of Canada without answering a single question to any of you. I'm out here answering your questions. I want to finish this. I think it's really important. We are at a time where, many of you saw the news today. We saw a violent shooting. I have people in my community that can't afford to eat. And we've got these guys shuttering Parliament. We have tariffs, like meteor-grade destructive tariffs being threatened on us by the American government. And they're having a cocktail party. Oh, that's so nice. Like, it's not about conservatives. Canadians are frustrated by this. And that's why, frankly, I hope you guys find him. I hope you guys force him to answer these questions. And that's why we're out here today.
You've mentioned a couple of times that Mark Carney is unelected. Does that mean you think Christian Freeland is more qualified?
It's a great question. Where is Mark Carney going to run? Where's Mark Carney going to run? I heard the rumor was that he was going to run in Edmonton. And then Randy, one of the Randy Boissonneaus, said that he was going to run again. And then he endorsed Chrystia Freeland. So is he going to run in Edmonton? Is he going to run here in Ottawa? I don't know. Is he asking Jagmeet Singh, is he cutting a deal with the NDP to not have a general election and continue this mandate-less government? That is a great question for carbon tax Mark Carney.
I'm curious just on, for a question for you personally, I'm curious if you saw Mr. Poilievre's interview this week where he challenged the interviewer on whether there are more than two genders, and if so, what were your thoughts on that?
I am an elected official. I have a long track record on all sorts of issues, including that. My record speaks for itself. You know whose record doesn't speak for itself? Mark Carney. Wonderful question to ask Mark Carney. What does Mark Carney think about that issue? What would he do? I wish he would step out here and answer those questions, but he won't.
Do you think your leader should be more open to the parliamentary press gallery?
My leader has done an exponential, infinite, extra amount of interviews compared to who? Canapé Carney. You guys can't say anything about Pierre Poilievre because he answers your questions. He's done multiple interviews this week. His feed is literally littered with parliamentary press gallery questions. But you know who isn't? Mark Carney. Mark Carney, who's happy to go on American television, but he has no time for you guys. He leaves the parliamentary press gallery hungry, standing in the cold, looking at his cocktail hour.
Last question.
Would a conservative government get involved in a case against Bill 21?
Another huge case hitting the news today, one that has serious implications for the entire country, something that maybe, I don't know, Parliament should be seized with in an emergency debate. Yet I'm standing here outside of my office with Parliament prorogued, unable to ask for any sort of questions or what the government thinks about that. But again, you know who this man might be Prime Minister in 6 weeks.
Get involved? Would your party get
Here's the thing. If we were in the middle of a general election right now, as we should be, you would be asking my party leader that question. You absolutely would. And he would absolutely be answering that question. But the reality is that Justin Trudeau has put his, as he always has done, his personal narcissism ahead of the country. Now we have a Liberal leadership race where likely, it's not guaranteed, but Mark Carney, an unelected man, will be Prime Minister in 6 weeks, and you don't have an answer to that question. So the next Liberal Prime Minister of Canada, who is like a Liberal will be, because of their leadership race, the next Prime Minister of Canada, and you don't have an answer from them. For shame.
Do you feel that his economic track record, Mr. Carney, could be put your leader at a disadvantage in the regard of the electorate?
Mark Carney has been the absolute architect of every disastrous policy that this government has been behind. He was since for over 6 years, Justin Trudeau has bragged about he's advised him on every single disastrous economic policy, be it the carbon tax. He's his senior economic advisor that advised on the fall economic statement that was 50% overspent. There is no way that Canadians can afford costly carbon tax, canapé, cocktail hour, Mark Carney. I cannot believe we are standing on this street corner instead of the House of Commons when the Americans are threatening us with 25% tariffs. My constituents can't afford to eat and can't afford housing. You guys, I hope you find answers for him. Do your job. He could be the next Prime Minister of Canada in 6 weeks. We need answers.
Thank
Giddy
you.
up.
Thanks so much.